Hello, and welcome to the CoSN Podcast. My name is Sean Ryan, and on behalf of CoSN and today's sponsor, Clever, we are excited to bring you a conversation on digital safety with the focus on how you can bring educators, students, and families into the conversation. Joining me today is Kerry Gallagher.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me today.
Welcome to the podcast. Kerry is the assistant principal for teaching and learning at St. John's Prep in Danvers, Massachusetts. She's also the education director for connectsafely.org. Prior to moving into administration, Kerry served as a middle school teacher, high school teacher, and then digital learning specialist for over 15 years. Kerry is a TEDx and keynote speaker and also shares her expertise by designing professional learning for school districts around the country. Once again, welcome to the podcast, Kerry.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Wonderful. I would like to go ahead and start out the discussion by asking you to define student privacy in the K12 landscape.
Yeah, sure. I think we are in an era, especially post-pandemic, where our students and our teachers are just accustomed to day-to-day engaging with a variety of platforms that allow them to create and consume information, to communicate with one another, and to collaborate on really inspiring tasks that are engaging them with their learning very actively. As a result of that, those of us who are working in either IT or teaching and learning administration have an added layer of responsibility that's perhaps even more evident than it has been in the past to make sure that the information that they are engaging with and the information about themselves that they share on these platforms is protected, because the students that we serve are under the age of 18 or 16 or 13 or 12 or even younger than that. So I think we need to be careful about ensuring that both the students and the teachers who are engaging together are aware of what student data is and what information they are giving of themselves to, us as the school administration, to the companies that control the data as part of those platforms. And then also we need to integrate parents into that conversation. I think it just starts with awareness, and then we can work on prevention, of course, in tandem, but that needs to be shared with all members of our community.
That's a great point. You talk about bringing families into the conversations, educators into the conversations. Can you share with us a little bit of an experience that you've had as far as how you've brought parents to the table?
Absolutely. So I do think it does need to start with the faculty who are working directly with the students first, because once you share this information with parents, they will have an expectation that any adult in the school community that they reach out to or communicate with is going to be on the same page in terms of that level of knowledge or understanding. So we started at my school, St. John's Prep in Danvers, with some faculty trainings. And, we are a 6 through 12 school with about 1,500 students and about 160 faculty members. So we're the size of a very, very big school or a very small district. And I think we function in both ways. We're a private school, but I think we function similarly to both, especially as somebody who has well over a decade of experience in public schools. So I understand the differences. To craft those or to format those trainings, we went and met with individual teams in middle schools. A lot of times middle schools are grouped in teams, and we met with departments in the high school. And we just gave them a basic definition of what student data is, what student data privacy is. We help them understand what we look for in terms of use statements and in privacy policies. And we help them understand what we look at when we examine a website or a new app or something, when we're doing the vetting that we are required to do in order to ensure that we're compliant with laws like COPPA and FERPA related to our protections of student data privacy. And then that's it. Then we said to them, this doesn't mean that you're responsible for doing this vetting. We just want you to know what we do to protect the students that all of us care about when you request a new subscription or app or website to be used in your classroom. the response was so positive, right? Our teachers now know why we are asking for that permission in advance, and they know why it takes some time for us to get back to them. And when we are unable to approve their request, which actually just happened to me yesterday, it was a request that came from a student though. I provided screenshots of like, here's what it says in the TOU, here's what it says in the privacy policy, here's why it violates these rules. I'm really, really grateful that you went in and started reading those on your own and that you're advocating for yourself though. Let's work together to find a different solution, right? And I think that's the key. So our teachers now have a better understanding. Then we integrated into, to answer your question, to our parent trainings. So when a student starts in 6th grade at our school and when a student starts in 9th grade, part of the orientation process, much of the orientation is really just about the student, of course, and it's, integrating into our culture and getting to know what it means to be a student here and creating a sense of belonging in our community. But we want to create a similar sense of belonging for the parents, right? We want them to feel like this is their student's campus, but this is also a place that is now an extended part of their family. So we have some orientation programming where we ask the student and the parent to come together and learn a little bit about the programs that we have in place to support them. And one of those programs is our student data privacy, because they're entrusting us with information about their child, which is their absolutely most precious, most important thing in the world for them. So here's what we need you to know as a parent about what data your student will be sharing with us and with the companies that we've entrusted to be a part of the educational process. And here's what you need to know about how we're protecting it and how we're staying apprised of it. If a new tool comes about that we think is academically valuable for your student to engage in, we'll vet it according to these standards. This also just happened 2 weeks ago. If it doesn't meet our standards, but we still think it's academically valuable, we're going to contact you and say, hey, this is a little bit outside of our parameters, but it's really valuable. So we want to give you a heads up that we're going to introduce this tool in your student's classroom. Here's the reasons why. Here's like the process we went through. Please let us know if you have any concerns, and we will make sure we connect with you directly. We just did that with an generative AI powered tool that a teacher wanted to integrate into her classroom of sophomores. So these are mostly 15, 16-year-olds. And we probably sent that email out to the parents of about, I would say 80 students. We got 5 emails back with questions. We answered their very appropriate questions, and no one said no. They were like, no, we love that you have, as part of our orientation, informed us about what you're doing to protect our student, that you're allowing our students to use the latest and greatest technology as part of their education in a really empowered and positive way, and that you've kept us informed. So I think it's like keeping everyone in the loop. It's the constant communication. That's what helps people feel not afraid, but instead, like I said, empowered.
For sure. It's the empowering aspect of things, allowing the parents to kind of streamline that communication and letting them know that they can reach out to you has to be definitely reassuring for them. There was a lot to kind of unpack as far as what you said, but there was one thing that kind of stuck out to me. And it's probably something that's changed past 10, 15 years. And you brought up FERPA.
Yeah.
With student privacy and those things. How has that kind of evolved a little bit, if you don't mind just kind of telling me a little bit as far as with the student privacy when it comes to tech? Because when FERPA was first set up, I think it was probably maybe in the 70s. And so there's been a lot of changes.
Yeah, we're tracking so much more information about our students than ever before. We have student information systems that are able to track data across so many different areas of a student's life. I think one of the phrases that we hear in education often now is the whole child, right? So not only are we tracking their academic data, but we're tracking health data. And the academic data is no longer just transcript level data. There's oftentimes like formative assessment built in. There's notes that school counselors are taking that is built in. Sometimes it's literally just notes from a phone call that like almost every time we have a touch point with a parent, we're able to share notes on our SIS so that other members of the team that cares for that student are able to access it so that we're all on the same page about how we're communicating with this family. So I think FERPA was meant to allow parents to feel like they could contact the school and have access to the information about their child, because let's be honest, of course, we care about children, but the people who are the most aligned with what is best for that child are the parents, and that's the way it should be. I think FERPA has evolved so that, it's built into every privacy policy and TOU that parents can reach out and get all the data, right, for their children. But the truth is that the school is acting in the place of the parent in a lot of cases when it comes to the use of digital tools like a learning management system or a formative assessment platform or something like that. So we do need to be aligned with FERPA, and I think there's an implicit understanding that the school is acting in the best interest of the child in the role of parent when it comes to selecting those tools. When you are open with parents about that, and transparent about helping them understand that, I have found they're very positive, and they do trust us to do that. They know that we're the experts and the professionals when it comes to education technology. Almost all of the parents that come to a school or who send a child to a school work with technology in some way in their professional life, but education technology really is its own niche. So I've even had parents at these orientations raise their hand and ask me student data privacy questions, thinking they're going to stump me. And then I answer the question and I'm like, but if you clearly you have a deep knowledge of this. So if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with me after this program, because there's 100 people in the room, so I don't want to bog them down in our, come and see me, let's talk another time, or let's talk after the program. And then I talk to them after and they're like, oh yeah, and I'm a VP at Microsoft. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, so that's why you have such a depth of understanding. Let's talk more about your VP role. What aspect of the technology are you involved in? And then I find out that they're a VP of marketing, which is phenomenal, but it's just not the same as what it is to work in education technology. And they just wanted to make sure that I had the expertise to really talk about what I was talking about when it's connected with their child. And once we have that conversation, they do. And that's our job, is to just demonstrate to them that we are qualified to take care of their children, which is the most precious thing in their life.
The transparency aspect of things, I think that's so important. Thank you for that. That's really good. Now, I'm going to ask you this as a parent of 2 teenage boys myself. Okay, they have these things attached to their hip all the time. Can you share with our audience a little bit of safety concerns that parents should be aware of when it comes to downloading various apps that we have on these things?
Yeah, great question. So Sean, you and I chatted a little bit before. I have 2 teenage girls and you have 2 teenage boys. So in some ways we're very similar, and in other ways it's probably a little bit different in terms of our experience with our own children. And I'm really grateful for how old my children are right now at this moment, because I often have I of course have the opportunity to work with parents in the school community that I serve, but because of my larger role with Connect Safely nationwide, I am often contacted by leaders in other school communities to come and provide parents with some guidance. And I really am walking the talk with my own children. They need to have these things with them all the time. Number one, it's comforting for me. My 11-year-old walks herself to and from, or rides her bike to and from school every day. The house is empty when she leaves the house. All of us have already left. This allows me to track where she is. I know that what time she leaves. I've already been in the office for over an hour. I can pop my phone up and just kind of watch her make her way to school and watch her go home. And it's really not something that I do because I'm checking up on her. It's comes from a place of caring and concern, and she knows that. And I've shared with her that I do that. And I think that that's fair. As long as the theme of our conversation, as long as a parent, I'm being transparent with her about how I'm using the technology and what it allows me to see. Will I track her location when she goes to college? I hope I won't. I mean, I don't have a child in college yet, but that seems a little excessive. If she's no longer living with me, I don't know that I have a right to that information anymore. So we may turn that part of the service that is offered on the platform off. When it comes to data privacy and that, I do think parents should feel empowered to do something. We have, and this is true both on if you have a Android phone, like a Google style phone, or if you have an Apple platform phone, both have settings in place that allow you to have some supervision over your child's device. And you can be the one to either approve or deny their ability to download a new app or program. I still use that even with my older teenager. And I've trained them as to what the criteria are for me to approve something. So now when I get a request, I get a follow-up text message explaining why they want the app and why I am likely to approve it. And part of that criteria is, what are they using it for? What need is it filling that is not already met? What would they be able to access in terms of information or friendships or something like that? Creativity, entertainment. Entertainment is a valid reason to want an app that they don't have access to. And I always ask them to check it out in the App Store in terms of the age rating. And also whether there are in-app purchases. And so we've had conversations about that. And the criteria for my 14-year-old are different than the criteria for my 11-year-old, obviously, because of their different age levels, but also because they're different people. I'm sure, Sean, like you have 2 kids. One thing about having more than one child is like you'll have one and my experience was I had one and I was like, I'm pretty good at this parent thing. I'm going to have another one. And then you have another one and you're like, I thought I had it figured out. What is happening, right? So I think that's another thing. Parents should feel empowered to like have different standards for different children based on the needs of those children, and just be honest with your kids. Like, you let her do that, but you don't let me. And I'm like, but you're not her. And like your strengths and struggles are in different places. And I let you do this that she couldn't do at your age. And like, that's also like not equal, but it's what each of you need at this time in your life. So all of those things are part of our conversation. My standards are, if the age rating needs to be appropriate, and if the age rating is not, then I will check in. I'll do a little more digging on the app and just find out like why. And if it has in-app purchases, that's not like a deal breaker, but they need to know that they're not allowed to make in-app purchases. Neither of my children has ever violated that, because my credit card is tied to their account. Neither of my children has ever violated that, but they have asked me to buy them power-ups in games, and all they have to do is make the case, and I have said yes. So I think that's the other thing, is that, and no rule can be an absolute rule. You have to be willing to have the conversations, because within those conversations as a parent is where the education happens for your child, where they learn about what, for me, it isn't just about the money. It's like, is that money worth it in terms of value? How much does this mean to you? And if this game means that much to you, like, do you want it to take up that much space in your life? Mm-hmm. What else could that space be taken up with? Could it be taken up with time with friends, or doing a painting, or going to a sports practice, or so like I've bought power-ups for $3, but I won't buy power-ups for $20. Right. So I think that's the conversation that we've had.
Well, Kerry, I think that is we live very similar. And I love the fact, and a key takeaway was I love the fact how you have your daughters give you a reason why they need the app. And it's not just, I need more screen time.
Yeah.
It's not just that, but why do you need this? Why do you need that? So that's really good. I appreciate you kind of sharing that with us. I want to pivot back a little bit to some of the data privacy that we kind of talked about. And you've really kind of covered a lot of things, but there's some things that I want to kind of nail down for it, as far as systems, processes that you've put in place to surface education data privacy to individual groups. We talked a little bit about, with your background as a TEDx speaker and going to different districts, kind of share with us a little bit some of your expertise, some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So the systems that we've put in place at St. John's, and this is something I've shared at like CTO conferences and stuff like that, so that other schools can replicate this in a way that works best for them. I think the important thing is to build the systems into your existing systems. So don't try to create a whole new system in order for data privacy to be effectively implemented, a screening process. So when I came to St. John's, there was already a book list process that was in place where teachers, if they wanted to select a new book for the following school year, they had to submit that by March 1st of the year before. So when I started here, I said, let's add to the book list process apps that they want loaded. And we're in one-to-one, we're an Apple school. So we're an Apple distinguished school, actually. So we're one-to-one with iPads, the students are, and the teachers each have an iPad and a MacBook. So if you want a new app that students are going to have access to on their iPads, that needs to be added to the book list because it's a resource used for teaching and learning, just like a book. So the book list became a book and app list. Okay. And the whole thing was that was exactly when we did those trainings I mentioned earlier in our conversation with we went around to each of the departments and said, this is why we're adding apps to the book list. Here's what we do. And this is why we need it so far in advance. That doesn't mean that a teacher can't request an app in like mid-December. They can. They just need to understand that it's already mid-year. So it may take us a few days. And we really, truly only take a few days to analyze it, turn around and let them know if it can be added. The standards are different for middle school than they are for high school because of the ages of the students and our legal obligations. We shared that with the teachers. So we built that into the process. I want to say like 6 or 7 years ago, we built that into the process. Once they got accustomed to that, the scope of how resources are accessed has increased and improved. So now a lot of our textbooks are actually digital platforms. And so those are on that same list. So now it's not even called the book and app list. It's called like the resource list or something. I forget. We've had to rename it a bunch of times because then it was not just physical books and apps and online platforms. Now it's also any website where students have to create accounts to access it. So, sometimes I get clarifying questions from department leadership, like, would this app qualify or this website qualify? Will this one? And that's fine. I'm willing to answer a million questions to get this right so that we're like protecting our students' data and doing our due diligence. And so that's the system that we built in. And so the list, as you can imagine, we have 12 academic departments, is long, and it takes my team a long time to go through it. But because we have the opportunity to build that list every year with our academic instructional leaders, we have conversations about student data privacy annually now with that group. So the initial training was like a sit-down training, but now the conversations are just a part of our processes. It's a part of the systems that we are already doing. So that's one way that we did it. And I would say the other way that we've built it into systems is what I mentioned before, which is part of our parent orientation is learning about what the dress code is. It's learning about our disciplinary, processes and expectations. It's learning about how to navigate a student's schedule, and it's learning about how we protect student data privacy and how parents can reach out to us if they have questions. So it's built into the orientation structures. So that would be my advice, is look for the opportunities in existing systems. Don't try to create a new system because that will feel like an extra. And what I've found is that both the reaction from teachers and the reaction from parents is like, other orientations I've done have not included this. Like, what made you think to add this? And it's because if you do what many schools do and you have like a parent night where it's like, learn everything that we do around technology to serve your student. Parents don't have time to come in the evenings and spend an hour for like a special parent program. They're probably like you and I, Sean, and like I'm leaving work and my husband and I are driving in opposite directions with our children for sports. So like an evening event to go to their school, like it's a lovely idea, but that's just not a part of my reality.
For sure. There's a term that is out there in the cyber community and those things. Bad actors.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to student data privacy, and you're going through this and you're educating the parents about this, how many times do they kind of like step back and go, whoa, I didn't realize that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bad actor thing is less common than we think. I think a lot of times when student data privacy is policies are violated or there are breaches, oftentimes it's as a result of the naivete of edtech startups. So I don't think, I really don't think it's intentional. I don't think there's any malice behind it. I think it's simply because of somebody who's really enthusiastic and inspired to put a solution in the hands of teachers and students who just doesn't know enough about cybersecurity and what they need to do on that end. And so their product goes to market, and there just hasn't been anyone along the development process with them who said, like, hold on, this is something that you need to do before you go to market. In terms of bad actors, the other part of our earlier conversation about like social media and online safety and stuff, that's, I think, where it does happen. I've done some work with, the Internet Crimes Against Children organization, and through my work with Connect Safely with NECMEC. I actually just got off the phone with somebody from NECMEC right before this conversation. And that's where we're talking about things like sextortion, and we're talking about, the targeting of users of social media by bad actors. And those are like actual rings that are meant to get financial benefit by basically blackmailing people. That's what sextortion is. So I think that all of that is a really important part of any kind of like digital wellness conversation. And I think schools are a great institution to be the distributors of that information. I don't necessarily think schools are obligated to do it, because a lot of it is not necessarily connected to like what we do in school. The business of school is academics. But I think if your school mission is tied to that whole child approach, then you are obligated to do it. So I think like if you want to be really truly black and white about what schools do, we are obligated to protect student data privacy because we are using technology in order for students to access our curriculum. I happen to work at a school that's very mission oriented, and and one of the reasons that families decide to send their children here is because they agree with that whole child wellness approach, that there's an aspect of their life that's not just academic, but athletic, aesthetic, spiritual, all of it, right? As a result, we feel an obligation to make sure that they're aware of those bad actors and that they can protect themselves. But I think as a school, that's something that you have to assess and decide, do you feel as though you're equipped to do that? And if you're not, what resources can you access so that, if it continues to come up, you can address it. One more thing I would add is that bad actors are not always strangers. Sometimes there's bad actors within our community. Unfortunately, adolescents make poor choices as they're trying to figure out how to make their way through this world. They test boundaries, and sometimes they step over boundaries when they're testing them. And as a school community, you have to decide what are your values around both holding them accountable and helping them move forward in their lives when they make those choices.
That's great. That's really powerful. And my follow-up would be a term that you said is a little dated, digital footprint.
Yeah.
And understanding that aspect.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I think the old-fashioned terminology is like digital citizenship, and the old-fashioned terminology that goes with digital citizenship is digital footprint. The reason I don't think it's not that I think like digital citizenship is problematic. I don't think it's broad reaching enough. I think digital citizenship is about being a good person online, being your true self, like the same person that you are in person is who you should be online. And, I think some definitions of digital citizenship integrate a little bit of media literacy into that, which I think is really helpful and important. But it doesn't get to some of the other things that digital wellness gets to, which is like are you getting enough sleep as compared to how much time you're spending on screens? What are your night habits with your technology? Are you getting enough exercise? When you communicate over technology, what does that look like? Is it all text messaging? How much of it is video calling? Like, how many hours are you spending doing that? Who are you always video calling with the same people? Are they the same people that you see all day in school, or are they people that you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to communicate with? Like, how are you using the technology to do things that are opening doors for you rather than making your world smaller? So I think, but when it comes to digital footprint, that aspect of digital wellness and citizenship, there is no way for us to never make mistakes with what we put out there online, whether we're adults or children. And children are going to make more mistakes than adults because that's how they're built. That's part of growing up. That's what we expect from them. So to expect from them to never put anything that's a mistake or problematic online is an unfair expectation and sets them up for failure in a way that's unfair to them. Like, part of growing is messing up and moving through life in that way. There are some mistakes that are bigger than others. And so mistakes that cross over, if a student were to post something online that crosses over into being sexist or racist or a threat of violence or something that's very serious, then yeah, I think, we need to hold them accountable. We need to, in a preventative way, warn them against doing that and talk to them a little bit about the longer term expectations. And there's also services like takeitdown.org that can get that removed and scrubbed from the internet now. But there needs to be a little bit of a combination of accountability, but also like, remember who you're having the conversation with. And if it's like an 11-year-old, like that's still a little kid who's like making little kid mistakes. Unfortunately, they're making it on a public scale, but we need to not just hold them accountable, but take care of them in the aftermath of that. So that's my perspective on that one.
That's great insight, and I thank you for that. Well, wonderful, Kerry. This has been absolutely fabulous. And I have one question, because we've covered a lot of great topics today. In closing, if you could change one thing about digital safety and wellness for parents, students, and educators, what would that be?
Really good question. I think I would, what I would like to change is like more hearts and minds than systems. That I would love for fewer people to feel afraid to talk about it. I think when I am on the sidelines of the fields where my children are playing sports games, it's pretty clear what I do professionally when you look me up online. And so a lot of the parents of my children's friends and teammates are like, hey, we ran into this at home. Like, what should we do? But they're not asking each other. They're asking me as like the expert who they happen to know. And I think when their child makes a mistake, they're afraid to admit it to other parents because they're worried it makes them a bad parent. So I think if I could change anything, it would be that we would talk more openly about this, because the truth is that it's advancing so quickly that we're all figuring it out as we go, and no other generation of parents has done this before. So I think if we could be more open with one another when our child makes these mistakes, we can better help one another move through it as a community. And my hope would be, as an extension of that parents would be more open to partnering with schools when this happens. Unfortunately, sometimes when this happens and it has an impact on the school day, and we as a school, as school leaders, like reach out to parents. And this has happened a couple times at my school, but my school, I know we're not alone. Parents' gut reaction is to protect their child and be like, well, everyone else is doing it too, so it's not a problem. And it's like, well, but is that the value, right? Even if it's a very commonly done thing, and even if your child just happened to get caught, are those the values that we've agreed to as parents in this community that we share together? I wish that we could, again, just be more honest and vulnerable with each other about the harder parts of this so that we can really develop creative, empowering, and positive solutions together, because those solutions are out there. And we would get to them faster if we're more willing to be open and not so afraid. I don't know. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We shouldn't be afraid of our mistakes.
It's an outstanding point. And communication, again, communication is the key. It seems that is the key for everything. Well, Kerry, thank you so much for your time today and insight. Once again, we'd like to thank today's sponsor, Clever, for supporting this episode on digital safety. We look forward to having future conversations down the road. Thank you again, Kerry.
Thank you, Sean.
Do you want to prevent malicious account access? Are you facing mounting pressure from insurance companies to implement new tools? With Clever's latest security tools, Clever IDM and Clever MFA Plus, you can discover a solution that saves time, streamlines access point for end users, and helps protect sensitive data, all from the place you call your digital learning and data management home. Learn more at clever.com. Clever IDM provides automated account provisioning tools for Google, Active Directory, and Azure. Clever MFA Plus provides K12 staff and teachers with one secure login for protected access to key applications and devices. Learn more at clever.com.